In the town of Havenfall, people have stopped sleeping, living simultaneously in two realities. But when Dr. Lisa Morgan discovers that their bodies are lying in comas, she must decide whether to leave them in a perfect dream or bring them back to an imperfect yet real world. The Sleepless Town. Twilight in the Colorado mountains had always felt deceptive to Lisa Morgan. The sky still breathed the gold of sunset, yet shadows had already poured into the canyons with a dense chill. She drove along a winding road, watching the first lights of Havenfall flicker around the bend. The sleep clinic where she worked as a consultant had sent her here to verify rumors that sounded more like legend. For 2 weeks, Havenfall's residents had not slept, not a minute, and yet they kept working, walking, laughing, without any trace of fatigue. No dark circles under their eyes, no edge in their voices. Newspapers and blogs called it the town that conquered sleep. Lisa didn't believe a word, but her report required facts. She entered Main Street just before 9 in the evening. Shop windows glowed as if it were midday. Teenagers with textbooks sat in the cafe. An old man read a newspaper under the post office's lamp. 2 men on the corner argued about baseball. But the most striking thing, no one looked as though their day had lasted 14 straight nights. At some point, she noticed something strange. The distant hum seemed to split into 2 sources, one low and slow, the other barely audible, like a hidden note within the noise. She felt a faint dizziness, as if the town had set its own rhythm, and she was expected to match it. She caught a glint in the passers-by's eyes. The streetlight reflections were too even, as though the light came from within. She slowed at an intersection. A boy of about 12 approached her car. Black jacket, tousled hair, pale face. He looked straight into her eyes without blinking. "Here, there are 2 sunrises," he said quietly, as if afraid someone might hear. Before Lisa could reply, he slipped into an alley and disappeared between 2 buildings. She exhaled and drove on. Beneath her glove, the thin silver bracelet on her wrist felt cool, a thing she always wore, even after returning from that morning shore, where Thomas was no longer there. Lisa woke in her hotel room to the same strange hum she'd heard the night before. It wasn't loud, more like the vibration of a distant transformer, but now she noticed it shifting in depth. Inside, it was barely there, but when she opened the window, the low oscillations grew stronger, mingling with the rustle of the wind. By 9 a.m., she was at City Hall. Mayor Dalton, a tall, silver-haired man in a perfectly pressed suit, greeted her warmly, as if they were old friends. On his desk sat a framed photo of a boy of about 8. When Lisa casually asked about his family, he paused, looked away, and simply said, "Loss teaches you to value what remains." Beside him stood Dr. Carmen Ruiz, an energetic woman with watchful eyes. She shook Lisa's hand, and Lisa felt a slight tremor in her fingers. On Ruiz's neck, a faint mark showed where a catheter was usually placed for chemotherapy. "We're glad you're here," Ruiz said. "I want to show you a few cases." At the clinic, Lisa examined 3 residents, a man in his 50s, a young woman, and a teenager. Their pulse, blood pressure, and pupil reflexes were normal. The equipment recorded anomalous spikes in brain activity, patterns Lisa had never seen. But the main record, the so-called neurofile, was encrypted and signed by an unknown external company. "We have no access," Ruiz admitted. "They said it's for scientific research." Lisa caught a mix of irritation and relief in her tone. like someone who didn't want to know the whole answer. Leaving the clinic, Lisa noticed the hum was weaker here than in her hotel at night. But on the bridge over the river, it grew denser, deeper, as if the water resonated with it. Dalton caught up with her. Here, you'll see that reality is a flexible concept. Lisa didn't answer, but wrote in her notebook, "Hum changes. External contractor. Ruiz has a personal reason to hold on to this world." Lisa decided to stay awake through the night to see the town in its night state. In her hotel room, she sat by the window with strong coffee, watching the empty street. At 11:59 p.m., the street lights grew softer, warmer, and shadows shifted as if under another, unseen sun. Exactly at midnight, the streets transformed. A strange collage of eras. On one corner stood a 1970s diner. Across from it, ornate balconies from the early 1900s, and beyond, a modern glass facade. Lisa noticed a pattern. When two passers-by reminisced about an old bakery, one appeared right before her eyes, filled with the smell of fresh bread. In a side alley, she spotted a shop with a faded sign, "Memory Exchange." Inside, a woman in a 1940s dress accepted personal items, rings, photos, books, and handed out strange amulets in return. "To keep the dream strong," she explained, giving someone a piece of amber. A man in a dark coat with attentive eyes called out to Lisa, "Want to see the real Havenfall?" They walked together. At some point, she caught the scent of black tea, the same one Thomas always kept at home. The man hummed a tune she knew painfully well, and, on the bridge, rested his hand on the railing exactly as Thomas had. Before them, a garden appeared, orange trees, a fountain with slow water, though it hadn't been there in daylight. But when she asked who he was and why everything felt like her own memories, his figure blurred like an unfocused image. Along the garden fence, tiny metallic capsules with blinking dots clung to the posts, cameras or sensors invisible during the day. The hum intensified, and for the first time, Lisa felt sure someone was watching. In the morning, Lisa returned to the clinic, determined to check for any restricted areas. Dr. Ruiz accompanied her, but seemed tense. Lisa noticed the tremor in her hands was worse today. On the third floor, they stopped at a metal door with no sign. "Archive," Ruiz said shortly. "It's unsafe. Old construction." Later, when the corridor was empty, Lisa used a code she'd glimpsed from the nurse. Beyond the door stretched a dim hallway with the smell of disinfectant. In the first room lay the young woman Lisa had seen at the bakery in Havenfall's night state. Her body was motionless, connected to machines. On the devices gleamed plaques marked Somnus Array with installation dates from 3 weeks ago, after the earthquake. The next rooms held empty beds, deepening the mystery. Why weren't all the residents here? In one room, Lisa froze. At the bedside, holding the hand of an 8-year-old boy, sat Mayor Dalton. It was the same boy from the photograph on his desk. Dalton lifted his gaze, showing neither anger nor excuse, only weary defiance. There, he lives. Here, he just fades. At the nurse's station, Lisa spotted a folder labeled Phased Awakening Protocol. The pages were sealed with warnings about possible severe neurological consequences. Ruiz caught up with her in the corridor, her voice breaking. "In reality, I have cancer. Here, I don't. Here, I can work, breathe, live again. Don't ask me to destroy this." In the administrator's office, Lisa searched electronic files. Among the reports were letters and invoices addressed to an anonymous company. The amounts and timing made it clear this dream world had been bought and maintained, likely under constant observation. She left the restricted wing, knowing the mystery wasn't just how to wake the town, but who decided who got to sleep. That evening, Lisa sat on her hotel bed, staring at the bracelet on her wrist. Fragments of life with Thomas returned in brief flashes. The morning he fussed with the coffee maker while humming, his habit of leaving an open book on the windowsill so it could see the sunrise too. That exact look when he found her on the station platform after a long trip. All of it, simple, whole, and lost. After midnight, she found herself in Night Havenfall. Thomas was waiting at their home, warm and intact, just as before. "Let's live the day that was stolen from us," he said, without reproach or plea. They walked the street, laughed at old jokes, drank tea, and Lisa almost forgot it was a projection. Almost. Back at the clinic, Dalton took her to his son's room. "Here, he lives," the mayor said, looking at the boy. "Out there, I've buried him once already. I can't do it again." In the doctor's lounge, Ruiz offered a plan. Lower the generator signal gradually over months. "The cost is unpredictable," she warned. "Memory loss, speech defects, seizures, but there's a chance." To gauge the risk, Lisa briefly lowered the amplitude manually. Outside in the corridor, people staggered as if shocked. Two fell to their knees, clutching their heads. She restored the settings immediately. In the heavy silence that followed, Lisa knew there was no painless way out. Here, people had found comfort, but comfort could not be the measure of reality. A world without pain could never be real. She thanked Ruiz for her honesty, but her decision was made. She only had to find the way to the generator and to the truth no one here wanted to face. The night was windless. The hum from the station dense, almost tangible. Lisa walked toward the hydroelectric plant, feeling each note vibrate in her chest. At the entrance, the residents met her. First wave, the woman from the flower stand, the man in the suit, the cafe teenagers. They spoke over each other. "Here we're whole. Don't take this from us. Why wake up to a world where nothing waits for us?" Their voices blended into a chorus of pleas. Second wave, Dalton. He led her into a side room where his son lay on a cot, smiling in sleep as if dreaming something good. Dalton's eyes held everything: fear, love, and the knowledge he could lose him again. Third wave, Thomas. He appeared as if he had always been there, taking her hands. "I'm not asking you to stay," he said softly. "I just want you to know we could have met again." The night world seemed to fight for her. Everything grew sharper, warmer. Lisa saw herself and Thomas at the lakeshore 10 years in the future. Their home, a garden, the laughter of children. The collective dream offered her the best version of her future. But with it came the knowledge, the price. Shutting it down would erase one specific memory of Thomas. The morning they laughed at the rain, running into the house soaked to the bone. Ruiz urged over the radio to try a third option. Lisa agreed, temporarily lowering the signal. Patients began to thrash. Monitors showed dangerous arrhythmias. She restored the settings. The path was closed. Lisa stepped up to the console. The hum began to fade, as if the town were exhaling. Then, a sudden drop into silence. In the clinic, people woke in different ways. Some crying, some screaming, some sitting mute with empty eyes. Dalton sat at his son's bedside. The boy was pale but breathing. The mayor held his hand, staring without blinking. Lisa turned away and walked down the corridor, knowing the silence would remain with her forever. 2 weeks later, Havenfall no longer resembled a legend. In the mornings, people walked the streets with tired faces. Some clutched prescriptions for sleeping pills. At the pharmacy, sedatives ran low. In the library, small support groups met in the evenings, speaking of anxiety, fears, and how the night world had stayed in their dreams until the final day, and now would not return. In the alley where the memory workshop once stood, the windows were empty. Inside, only dust and the reflections of passers-by. Dr. Ruiz met Lisa outside the clinic. Her hair was pulled into a tight knot, her eyes tired but clear. "The diagnosis hasn't gone anywhere," she said. "But I'm a doctor. My work is here, not there." On the central square, Lisa saw Mayor Dalton sitting at a new memorial bench dedicated to all we have lost and found. There was no hostility left in his face, only the quiet grief of a father who had endured a second farewell. Before leaving, Lisa stopped at the roadside. The boy in the black jacket, now with a crutch, approached her car. "Were you scared?" he asked. "Yes," Lisa replied, "but sometimes courage is just one step forward, even if you're afraid." He nodded, something like gratitude flickering in his eyes. At the hotel, packing her things, Lisa checked her email. Among the messages was a strange log file with no sender. Date, 1 day after the earthquake. Inside, fragments of technical commands, mention of Somnus Array, and the coordinates of the station. No signature, no explanation. As she drove out of town, the dawn was quiet. Then, in the silence, she caught a faint, almost ghostly hum. It faded after a few seconds, leaving a light tingling at her temples. Not proof, just a scar. A reminder that the border between dream and waking is never final. She turned on the radio and drove on, letting her eyes close for a moment, knowing that now it meant true sleep.